Hello and welcome to my channel. So before I start this video, which is going to be my last little offering for the month of May, I wanted to, for a second, thank everybody who watched my last video. Dating apps and the use of technology to help facilitate romantic connections is a thing I'm very passionate about because I feel like they're always viewed as this unnecessary evil that we need to cut out of society. Also, they're viewed as this thing that only weirdos and societal rejects have to resort to using. And, you know, the truth is sometimes so far away from that. And I remember when I first started using them, I would get into straight up fights with people sometimes in my life, especially women that I knew who were used to going out to a bar or a club or wherever, and just being snatched up. And so when I tried to explain to them that, well, that doesn't really happen for me, I would get met with a lot of, well, what are you wearing? Or what are you doing when you go in there? Well, I mean, are you even trying to talk? It's just when you're living a different reality than somebody else, sometimes there's just all this friction and they don't believe that things are unfolding for you the way they are. And so I remember having to there was one friend in particular, we butted heads on the use of them and why. And I remember one time we had a conversation where I said, you know, there could be somebody out there who's just like me, who just doesn't thrive in these environments. And when they're in places like this, you know, it's hard for them to make connections. And I'll never forget, she goes, is that really the kind of person you want to connect with though? Like, I'm sorry, but basically what she was saying is, do you want a loser like that? Because the idea is that men, if they're out and they can't meet nobody, they're definitely losers. When I just think that sometimes people just don't thrive in certain environments. So she and I really eventually came to this conclusion of, hey, you're not going to use them and I will. If I talk to you about my dating life, you know where he came from. And over time, we grew to just understand that we had different needs and they would be met different ways. But I have had that conversation with people a lot over the years. And so when I saw that they were getting a lot of pushback and for valid reasons, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to have the conversation I've always wanted to have about the apps. And I did. And I was just excited about how many people watched. And it reminded me of the old days of when I used to post here and really actually enjoy the content that I posted. I would like to acknowledge my hair really quickly. Remember a couple years ago when like doing the high puff was really cool. And now like you really don't see it that much. Do you see it? I don't know. But I'm in the middle of wash day. I haven't washed yet, so don't look at the back. Leave it alone. Anyway, we're doing this. We're doing a high puff on my head. I think it's cute. I've been wanting to defend dating apps for a while, even while I was getting dogged out on them. I have had some terrible experiences for sure. But like I said in that video, if it hadn't been for dating apps, I legitimately never would have even started dating. So, and I mean dating by actually making it a point to go out, to meet people, to have dates. Like I'm going on a date, not just, oh, I met this guy and now we're involved. Another thing I want to acknowledge is that I don't think running clubs are a bad thing. When I was looking up videos to use for my video, I guess the algorithm never forgot, and now it serves me a lot of running club content. This is a video that I got last night, actually, as I was scrolling through. And you can see these people look happy as hell to be outside running in a group. They look psyched. This is a group, I think, that's been around for a while. This is a group from Houston. They meet at 8 a.m. on Saturdays at something called Leland House. Born and raised in Houston, have no idea where so many things are. But anyway, and they're excited and there's a lot of people. And apparently you can also do walking. I would not want to walk though. And that's part of my problem as well. I'm so competitive. And so I would get out there and then they'd have to call the ambulance because I would pass out trying to like beat everybody and like be first. It's really tough, man. It's really tough inside my head sometimes. But that's definitely, I mean, people look great. And what excites me about something like this is one of the big questions that people always ask, especially in their 20s and 30s, is how can I make friends? Where can I go? And when you just have bars and clubs, that's hard. And so joining things like, I know things I've done, improv clubs, I joined an a cappella group. See, a lot of the stuff I like to do as well, the clubs and stuff I like to do are not very romantic places. But anyway, improv clubs, a cappella groups. I joined an astrology club at one point in time. There's things that you can do, and a lot of times these social clubs are examples of that. I was really just saying that for me, it wouldn't be a good idea because I hate this particular kind of physical activity. Running is not my thing. And then I found more videos where people were basically saying the same thing, like, wait a second, I'm hearing a lot about these running clubs, but I can't run. I don't like it. What can I do? And so a lot of these clubs do offer like walking, but you just hang out in the back, which gives me flashbacks from elementary school, and middle school, because I wasn't running middle school either. So I don't really like that. But I also don't like this. If you look at this young woman's video, this is not what I want to see. These men and me working out don't need to be anywhere near each other. I don't know about y'all, but I don't function well in front of in front of people that I feel are extremely attractive and may want to experience things romantically or sexually with. I don't function well. They can't be there. When I'm in like workout mode, they can't be there. I don't function well at all. I would shut down. That I would go deaf mute. They would be like, this girl showed up. She was talking and now she's not talking. She's not speaking. She's just catatonic staring off into space. I don't function well in situations like this at all. I remember when I was in high school, we had a tumbling coach. Ooh, my God. He was, Lord help. And normally with my coaches, I was fine, except for occasionally I'd be so sweaty that they would try and spot me on like a back tuck or something, and I would slip out of their hands. But this guy, he was like, oh, you know what? I'll stand in the middle. That's where they would stand so that they could help you with your back handspring or whatever. He's like, I'll take over for this shift or this portion of the tumble night. He comes in and he stands in the middle and I see him. And from the line, I'm waiting for my turn. And I was just like, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good for me. This is not going to be good. I wish why is he there? He needs to leave. Why is he there? But he's not going to leave. It's his job. And so I get ready to tumble out and I just take a deep breath and I'm like, okay, girl, do the best you can. And I run to tumble out. And if you've ever done any kind of gymnastics or tumble or anything, you know the next word I'm going to use, which is hurdle. It's not like a track hurdle or whatever, but hurdling is putting your hands above your head. And my hands didn't come back down. They stayed above my head. And I ran across the floor like Superman with my, sorry. It's been like 20 years or something, 25 years. And I still remember I just ran across the floor with my hands over my head and I ran at full speed. Like I was going to tumble at any second, but it never happened. And he looked and he was like, all right. And y'all, I went and got some water. I called my dad. I was like, come get me. So I don't do well. There are some people that are like, oh yeah, we're going to go out there. We're going to be running and then the men going to come and behind. That's horrible. That is, to me, I'm like, I would straight up just like sit in the car and hope that they didn't show up. But if it's different for you, it's different. So, but I want to make it clear. I don't think it's ridiculous to join a run club or to do something like that. For me, it wouldn't be what I wanted to do because like I said in my video, I hate running, but they exist. And right now I'm seeing a lot of them talk about their existence in Dallas and in Houston. And I've heard people talk about them in Austin as well. So definitely if it's something that you like, I would get online and I would search Run Club blank city and get out and see if you can meet some new people. So there we go. This past week, there was a conversation that erupted on social media concerning the topics of content creators, comparisons, and crashing out. And to go ahead and define crashing out really quickly, I would say crashing out is in the family of burning out. And that is something that happens when you've been pushing yourself to the limit and eventually you just don't have any more to give. A crash out, though, to me is when they're not even aware that it's coming. Like they may have burned out a long time ago, but they kept pushing past it. And they're convincing themselves that it's okay, I'm okay. And then one day, you just lose it. You have a complete meltdown. You throw a tantrum, you throw a fit, you might march out, whatever it is. Crashing out to me is reaching an emotional place of no return. Like you just you explode. And this past week, that happened on over on TikTok with a young creator named Fannita. She is also a creator here on YouTube, and she has a pretty good social media reach. However, she is not what most people would consider an influencer. She's more of a content creator, and I'll get to that in a second. But Fannita basically got online this past week and started talking about, she initially started at a place where a lot of people I think could identify and maybe empathize with her, which was the pay gap between Black creators and white creators. But then she started calling out specific white creators, and it was very clear that she didn't really see herself and what she brought and what value she brings to the industry very clearly, just from the people that she was comparing herself to. The creator she compared herself to is a young woman named Alex Earl, and I've talked about Alex before in my Get Ready With Me video I did last fall that nobody watched. But I talked about how Alex, Bonet McMichael, several other creators last year became millionaires from TikTok specifically, and not from views on TikTok, not from people sending them gifts on lives or whatever, but from putting themselves on TikTok and through that connecting with brands and making partnerships that were 5-figure, 6-figure deals, and doing that consistently over the course of a year and building their personal finances up to millions and millions of dollars. And I was blown away by this because I never watched that content. I do not watch Get Ready With Me content. Like I don't watch it. And so I was like, why is this so popular? So I even, in that Get Ready With Me video, I even did my own little Get Ready With Me. I've done one on this channel since. But yeah, it's not something that I would seek out, but it's incredibly popular and it's incredibly lucrative for creators that make that kind of content because they eventually cross over from just being a creator to being an influencer. And that was a conversation that happened on social media as well. What is the difference between a content creator and an influencer? I will tell you what I think. So a content creator is someone like me. I make videos about things that I'm passionate about, but I create the videos, I tell the stories, I put content out in the world for people to consume, and that's pretty much it. An influencer is somebody who has the ability to drive commerce and to drive financial and purchasing decisions that their audience makes. They can directly influence the dollars and the money their audience spends. I will also say influencers tend to be aspirational, meaning people look up to you and that's why they want to use the things that you have and do the things that you do. If you don't have that, if you're not offering that, you're not an influencer, you are a content creator. And that is one of the things that Fannita didn't understand. She was like, well, I'm an influencer. I get brand deals. I do brand deals are just based on how many people watch your videos. And it's the type of brands that you work with. I think you need to pay attention to that as well. But an influencer and a content creator they're two different things. And it's okay. It is perfectly okay. But that was a little argument that people were having, and they were turning it into kind of like a classist, elitist thing. Like, well, I'm an influencer. You're just a content creator, which I think is ridiculous because I'm a content creator and I've been able to, if nothing else, just live a different kind of life for a little bit and get paid to share my thoughts online. Like that's a blessing. Nobody has to listen to anything you say. And the fact that people want to and they care enough to actually press play when you post a video, that's amazing. There's nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to that. So that's my 2 cents on that. And it's hard to understand that, I think, and sometimes take pride in what you're doing in the online creator space, whether you're an influencer or content creator. It's hard to do that when you know that one quality of life can be a little bit different, maybe better than another quality of life, which brings me to the concept of comparison, which is something Fannita was really going through. And that's why this whole thing started. So a lot of times when people talk about comparison, they will say, oh, well, comparison is the thief of joy. Like if you say, oh, I noticed that for this person, it's like this, but for this person, it's like this. They will shut you down really quickly and they will say, well, why are you even worried about that? Comparison is the thief of joy. You stop that. But see, here's the thing. I think it can be, absolutely, which is why if I find myself comparing myself to someone and it's something I can't control, like there's nothing I can do about it because somebody said once, you need to follow your jealousy. If you're jealous of something, if you're comparing yourself, what is your body, what's your mind, what's your spirit trying to tell you? Is there something there, an experience there that you would like to have? Is there anything you can do directly to have it? If so, go do that. If not, maybe take your eyes off of that person and focus on your own path. However, I think also sometimes comparison can be a learning tool. So for example, I mentioned this a lot when I talked about Amanda Seales. I'll talk about the same thing with Fannita. I had to be very real with myself when it came to, well, why, I'm a content creator. Well, could I ever be an influencer? Because there was a moment where I thought about it. I was like posting a lot on my Instagram. I was, even here, I've talked about products. I didn't get ready with me. Does it, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you have these specific components to the way you present content? And are you interested in doing this every single time? I'm at the point now where I can scroll through and just see somebody and be like, she's got it. She's got it. And then I go up to her bio and I'm like, yes, I see the representation. I recognize the firms people are with and I'm like, okay. And it's a look, it's a feel. It's when you're doing it, you're doing it. And I want to say this, sometimes what you're doing is great all on its own, but you're so focused on what someone else is doing that you can't see what you're doing. And when you compare, you have to holistically compare, right? So I think comparison isn't always a thief of joy. Sometimes it can be a really good teaching tool so that for me, for example, I came back to, it put me in my place, basically. I was like, oh, okay. I see now why I'm not at a certain level. I guess I'll just keep being myself. And sometimes that really pays off, which brings me to crashing out. So I want to give a little bit of background on Fannita if you don't know who she is. She is a part of what I am calling the Bonnet Brigade. And these are women who, mostly Black women, majority Black women, who blew up on social media during the pandemic, talking and giving their viewpoints and slinging jokes or slinging wisdom, whatever it was, from their beds in a bonnet. I was blown away by this because as somebody who does pay attention to what should be done and how people should present themselves, even if I don't always do it myself, I was really drawn to the fact that it seemed like Black viewers, the Black community, Black TikTok, they didn't need you to be as aesthetic all the time. They were more so looking at your character. And so you could be in bed with your blanket over your shoulder, your bonnet on, saying all kind of crazy stuff, but you could still build a platform. And so Fannita was a part of that group of young women during the pandemic and a little bit after who built a large platform, just chilling at home, wearing a bonnet, saying stuff on the internet. And then Fannita did something that a lot of people don't do. She crossed over into white media as well. So she started collaborating with and working with white creators. I'm not quite sure when she moved out to LA, but she moved out there and started collabing with and appearing in the TikToks and the content of popular white creators as well. From there, she went and got herself a podcast that is produced by a legitimate media company. So I think it's called Up Past Your Bedtime, and it's here on YouTube. To me, that is best case scenario for a content creator. You share your thoughts, you share your opinion. A legitimate media company says, you're not going to be doing that no more in your own dime, baby girl. We got you. Just come on in and talk on our dime. I love that. And I look at that and I'm like, that person is successful in my eyes. And so I think in this situation, you do have an example of somebody who has done really well, but is still looking over the fence because they're like, well, but I'd like to do better, right? Which is human. It's human. So anyways, Fannita is building this career. And at the same time, she's going through some personal changes. She gets gastric bypass surgery and loses a lot of weight. She moves from where she's from to LA. And she's, I guess, from what people say and from what she said, she experiences, I'm not going to speak on all of that. I'm not going to go down that road. What I will say is definitely some issues with not feeling as beautiful, not feeling like she belongs as much, attributing that to her weight, attributing that to just a lot of different things. Being honest about it, but like in a joking way. And then also, like anybody who presents themselves online, trying to learn to deal with the criticism and the pushback from people in the comment section. And in fact, one of Fannita's collaborators, Drew Afualo, I'm going to say her last name that way, I'm not sure. She has a podcast, just like Fannita. I think it's produced by the same company, called The Comment Section. Because when you are a creator, that is the bane of your existence sometimes. That can make or break you. But because of that, and because of how people have to kind of build up a wall and I will just say the mental stresses of being a content creator, going through all the things she was going through physically, and then in general, it seems her personality, it all sort of bubbled over at the beginning of last week, and she started lashing out, and she was lashing out at the pay, and she started lashing out at her supporters and her followers, and people started what they do on social media, which is asking, does this person deserve to be someone who makes money because we watch them do what they're doing? And I think that in this situation, it was very warranted because of the things she was saying to her followers, her subscribers, calling them broke, bragging about how much money she made, just saying a lot of really, really unnecessary things. If you know, you know. I think the videos are still up. The stitches and the commentary is definitely still up. But to me, I just felt my heart went out to her because I understand the crash out. I understand when so many things are boiling underneath the surface, and instead of turning off the phone, going in your room, hell, getting on a treadmill, going to take for me, a fun workout class would be a Pilates or a solid core or a boxing class and getting it out of your system, calling a friend. And Fannita's lucky because she has so many content creator friends. Call them, talk to them about it. You press record, you jump on the internet, and you let people that are not in the position to perform the emotional labor or the financial labor or whatever you're asking them to perform, because that's what it is. When you vent at somebody, you're asking them to perform emotional labor. That's what you're doing. And that's why I think in the last few years, it's been popularized for people to say, hey, I have something. Are you in an emotional space to be able to hear this right now? It sounds very corporate, but it's the best way to do things, because dumping on people when they're not ready and they're not qualified is the easiest way to burn bridges. But when you're crashing out emotionally, you're not thinking about that. You just need to get it out of your system. And according to Fannita, she's also going through some things at home, and it just sounds to me like she is another content creator who has stepped into this business and found that all that glitters isn't gold, found that just because you're making a good amount of money doesn't mean that it solves the insecurities and the shortcomings that you've had within yourself for years. Found that you're good, but somebody else is always going to be better, and for reasons that you're not going to be able to rationalize or, come to the table and figure out. I should also ask that Fannita was in a similar situation or causing some trouble online a year ago because she took another Black woman's spot on a brand trip after whining that she never gets, I say whining, I hate that word, after lamenting that she never gets asked to go anywhere. I'm not the only one. But anyway, I'm not the only one that talks about it. I think a lot of content creators, and I've seen this, tend to notice that there is great things to be experienced in this industry. And then they tend to notice when they're not on the list to experience those things. Sometimes in some places, the odds are going to be stacked against you, and there's just nothing you can do but excel in your own lane. And like I said, to me, that's what Fannita has done. To go from being a member of the Bonnet Brigade to having a legitimate media company host your podcast, you are doing well. And so I think sometimes you need to remove people from their altars, remove people from their throne, remove certain ideas of success from the throne, and just focus on what you've been allowed to do in this space. And also accept something that's really hard to accept, which is, and I've said this so many times, all of us are not going to be worth the same in the eyes of others. And so as a result, you can't ever compare your success to what somebody else is doing. Yes, on our base level, we're all worthy, we're all amazing. But I've said this before, social media is like a vending machine. And on the surface, it looks like we all have the same dollar and we can all buy the same stuff. Hey, I'm funny. I've got opinions. Let me put my dollar in the vending machine. I should get 1 million subscribers and brand deals, and I should be invited places, and that's how it should go. You're not the only one deciding here. The audience has to decide. The companies have to decide. So you might put your little dollar in and you might get back just 1 million subscribers. There's so many people on TikTok that have 1 million subscribers, but that's it. They don't have a legitimate media company hosting a talk show for them or hosting a podcast. They don't have none of that, but they got 1 million subscribers. They might have 1 million subscribers and never do a single brand deal. It happens, right? You might have people that you feel are so genius and so smart and so funny, and they never get over, they never make any money on social media. You might have people that you think are so uplifting, and so you might have people that you can't stand and they do so well. This is one of the fields that it's so foggy and so, it's not a meritocracy. And you really have to just focus on doing the best you can do and just accepting that your bounty is not going to look the same as someone else's. It's okay to say you want more, but it's not okay to say, I want more because look what's happening with this person. That person is not you. And there's so many Black influencers and Black creators that have been in the game for so long that have been talking about this. I mean, I did a story about this 2 years ago. I talked about how influencer agencies know this. They know, and it's related to just good old institutionalized racism. That's not something that you're going to be able to knock down just because you have a sense of humor. I, like a lot of people, if you use TikTok, if you use social media, you probably heard this young woman's name, and I had a different take on it, and so I wanted to share. And my take was basically just, I understand crashing out. Everyone was like, oh, she's manic. Why would she do this? This is not a job to go into, number one, where you already are dealing with insecurities and you're not feeling great about yourself. This job will tear you apart. Okay, so you got to be aware of that. Authenticity is celebrated on the internet until it's a feeling or an emotion people don't want to see, right? She was exploring and expressing some really ugly emotions. And so people reacted with mockery and with get her off of here, and we're excited to cancel her. And hey, I'm not saying they shouldn't have, because a lot of those ugly emotions were a desire to attack people because that's where she feels the confrontation was coming from, right? The audiences and people who won't understand. And I even understand that desire. I have myself. I've made videos going off on my audience, doing whatever else. I pull them down, but I've made those videos. I will just say, I understand from a frustrated content creator's point of view, when you push past burnout and you crash out. However, that's a place you never want to get to. And I cannot stress it enough. If you're watching this and you ever plan on creating content, maybe you watch this and you create content. You can record it, but don't post it. I have so many videos where I have recorded myself and another thing, put your finger down, sit back. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your vulnerability, that's great. You're authentic, wonderful. But please know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You come at people with an emotion they're not equipped to handle. They don't understand where it's coming from. They didn't ask for this part of you. They'll let you know what part of you they want to see. And it's the parts that they engage in happily, right? And, you can't always control what makes people feel good, but I guarantee there are some things you can recognize are red flags. You can recognize that it's not going to go good if I let this out. And it does matter, because as quickly as these careers happen, they can go away. As quickly as people want, and it not even just that, but it matters because this is your job. This is what you do. You want it to be something that makes you feel good. You want it to be something that you are proud of. And you have to be honest about when it's not making you feel good. And hopefully it's something that you can switch and correct so that you can feel good again and do what you've been so blessed to do. Because here's something I would say. If I knew Fannita, this is something I would say. Even on the worst days, even when you're not Alex Earl, okay, and you're not making her kind of money, but you're still doing real good. Even on the worst days, even on the days where you look at the comment section and somebody leaves just the nastiest thing. Even on the worst days where you look around and you're like, God, I'm making all this money and I'm doing so well and I still feel really bad about myself. This is still a dream job. And you know why? Because 1 million people have thoughts. TikTok has so many users, YouTube has so many, 1 million people have thoughts, 1 million people have ideas, but you get paid a livable wage to share yours. That's a blessing. That's a blessing beyond measure. And that's something I take away with me anytime I post on my YouTube channel, on my Patreon, wherever. Nobody has to give a damn about what you think, about what your opinions are, about what your jokes are. You're not the first funny person. You're not the first storyteller. But the fact that people care enough to stop what they're doing and watch something that you create, That's a blessing. And it may not look like somebody else's, but it's something you were able to do. Sometimes the solution to feeling like you're not getting enough is learning to be content with what you have and to be realistic, to be honest with yourself about why it looks a certain way for you. And if it's not something you can fix, move on to a situation where you can fix it, or be content with how things are right now. But regardless, don't let yourself live in a state of discomfort or lack of peace to the point where you crash out on the internet and everybody's talking about you and making fun. It's never worth that. And I say that as somebody who has crashed out, had to hear people talking about it, know people were talking about it. And even when you delete the content, the internet is forever and people don't forget. And that sucks. Okay. So definitely. And I think this works in any job where you feel like you've had enough. If you can avoid the big emotional breakouts, avoid them, because 100% of the time, they're not going to go the way you think they're going to go. It's going to go south. And I think that's what happened to Fannita this past week. I think it's a lesson that we could all learn from. So I failed at making this video short, but I'm going to edit it real quick and post it. And hopefully I will have it up by the end of today, and then see you guys in June. Thank you for watching.